Hi, I'm Andy Foreman. This is Disability Connection, a show that helps you make a connection with the disability community. My guest today, Joe Billel from Easter Seals, the Director of Public Affairs and Youth Services for Easter Seals, Massachusetts. Again, my name is Andy Foreman. This is a live call-in show. We'd love to get your feedback, questions, comments. We'll be talking about the very important topic of employment and people with disabilities. And we have some exciting news that Joe will share with us. Please give us a call at 617-708-3290. If you have a blocked number, hit *82. Again, 617-708-3290. Joe, welcome into the connection.
Hey, Andy, thank you for having me again.
Yeah, it's almost every year.
It's great.
Whatever.
I really enjoy being here.
Yeah, it's employment is very important to both of us, and we're very passionate about employment of people with disabilities. And we were talking before we came on the air here that, people with disabilities can survive off of benefits, whether it's Social Security or other benefits, and it can, but the quality of life is not. The quantity of life is fine. They can survive on benefits and, whether it's food stamps or fuel assistance or subsidized housing, but they can't save that much because of different rules with Social Security, so the quality of life is affected. As a jumping off point, I wanted to start with the bill that was passed.
Okay.
So why don't you talk about that?
Sure. So for the last almost 10 years, various advocacy groups, including our employment advocacy group, has been pushing this bill we call the employment bill. And within the employment bill, it basically asks that the state work with the state contractors and establish some sort of hiring goal and training program. And it was a bill that was put out by Representative James O'Day from the Worcester area, and also a Senate version was put out by Senator Barbara L'Italian from the Lowell Lawrence area.
Right.
And so that bill actually passed, and it passed this summer. What happened was within the economic bill that the governor passed, the language from our bill was basically included in that economic bill, and it was passed by the legislature and signed by the governor, and it's law now.
So what does this mean for people with disabilities?
So what it means is that once the state establishes some hiring goals, some mechanism to increase the amount of people with disabilities working for state contractors. So if we break it up, so basically, there are a lot of different state contractors. Both of us work for a state contractor. I work for Easter Seals. We contract with the state to provide different types of services. And basically what this bill is going to do is to have the state work with the contractors to establish a hiring goal. And there's no set number, so that's something that the state can work with the contractors on. People can give input. We're hoping that there'll be like a public forum where the public and the contractors, especially, just can come in and say, hey, look, maybe we need to have it at 7%. That's what the federal contractors.
Meaning that 7% of that contractor's employees would be people with disabilities, or?
Right.
Okay.
Correct. So that means that some contractors could already have 7% people with disabilities working for them.
Sure.
I mean, they could do a survey, find out they could find out how many employees actually have disabilities.
So this is just to make it clear for the viewers.
Sure.
This law applies to every agency or every company or every vendor having business with the state.
Yeah, through the executive office, yes. Yeah.
So it from our point of view, it hopefully means more jobs for people with disabilities, because these contractors have to go out and affirmatively recruit, hire.
Right, people with disabilities. But also, I think even more importantly, it makes them more aware. It gives them a reason to become more aware about hiring people with disabilities.
Gives the state?
The employers,
Okay.
the vendors, if you
The
will, I mean the
vendors.
contractors. So again, I always, people have said from the business world, if you will, that look, we're not going to do it unless there's a business reason to do it. Why are we going to do this? Doesn't
Right.
make sense. We don't want more bureaucracy, this and that. Well, now there's a business reason to do it, because once they establish goals and say, let's say they say, look, we want to have 7% of your employees be people with disabilities, or you need to take steps to get to 7%, which is what
Or
probably they would
you're
say.
just picking 7% out
I'm
of the
thinking
air?
well, not really.
Is it based on something?
Well, that's based on what the federal contractors have.
Okay.
The new 50.
So it's not, just to be clear again, it's not what this law says.
Right, correct.
It could be we could have 12% or 10%
Right.
or.
I'm just saying 7% because people are probably going to point to that number saying, hey, this is what the federal government uses. Why are you going to use any different number? So I'm just
Definitely don't go lower.
saying, don't go lower, right?
Right.
But at the same time, the federal government uses what they call 7% as a utilization rate. So what that means is that it is the job of the contractors to try to get to that rate or more. Okay, so they've got to show steps, which I think is important. Again, I think for a company that's not having the focus to hire people with disabilities, I think there's some education that needs to take place. To be, for example, is the company a welcoming place for people with disabilities? Are they do they, what's the company's philosophy? What have they done? I mean, can it physically act? Is it physically accessible? Is the web page accessible for people? I mean, a lot of people don't deal with that every day.
Right.
So, I mean, you and I.
Or they may not think about
Right.
that. They might think
Yeah.
about, is my website accessible to screen readers or
Right.
enlarging, whatever.
Is my place accessible?
Right.
How does somebody using a wheelchair get in? Or different things like that. And I think so that kind of education will take place, which is great because I think it just helps the company because it's going to open up a whole new pool of applicants as well, where they can go and seek. They're different. Like for example, a company may have a number of different jobs, and so there are a lot of different service vendors out there. I mean, providers that would love to place people with disabilities in different companies. I mean, there's tax advantages, there's money, but most importantly, you're going to get a good quality, loyal employee.
Well, and yeah, that's true. And I think it is under, whether it's prejudice or just people they don't think it's, and I said this during the celebration, it's not just the right thing to do. It's good for business. People with disabilities, whatever their disability is, physical, mental, cognitive, whatever, have the ability to do a job and be good at it.
Right.
And it's good for business, and that's what this helps out.
Yeah, and again, I look again, companies that are become more aware of people with disabilities and how to accommodate and things like that are companies that people tend to stay longer. The loyalty of the employees is greater. And just you look around, how do they treat their employees, especially somebody that has some sort of limitation? Everything from flexible schedules to other things, to their personnel policies. Do they does the company try to working with that individual, and helping that individual out, or do they basically, cast them aside or whatever? I think this is part of an educational plan, which I think will help.
Okay.
And then in mind, the whole disability community. It's important for the disability community to look at these opportunities to go to work. And there's so many people, in the disability community that have the skills and talents to be able to really make a
big difference
in our community. Absolutely, in the community, and to me, working is all part of. We're from the independent living world, where we want people to live independently as possible in the community, the way they choose to. And to me, that's always been the part that we've been missing is the employment piece, because most, in order to really participate in the community, I think people should have some sort of job. Now that doesn't mean they have to do full time, but people should try to work or volunteer to have, because again, that's what most people do in the community. They have another type of vocational, task that they do. And I think it's important to really live independently in the community is to if you're able to, is to go to work and to volunteer, whether it's part-time and whatever else. And,
Let's talk about a little behind the scenes in terms of from an advocate role. What kind of convincing did you have to do to get this bill law?
So we did a lot of work on the bill, and it wasn't just me. The actual text from the bill was done by another advocate, and again, the work from the legislators helping it push along. And when you get certain bills, it's hard to. There's a lot of different steps that are involved for a bill to become a law, and so it's important to have some, strong legislators pushing that bill and supporting it. And that's one reason why everything from the way the bill is, the language of the bill, the way that's set up and written, where, to who's supporting it, to having visits. I mean, how many times have different people go to the State House to support this and the different organizations that supported this, the bill? And then when it gets toward the end, when it gets close to passing, again, different things happen. Sometimes, it's for somehow, again, I don't know why, who did this, but they actually just took our language and put it into the economic bill, which is amazing. I still don't know.
Great,
I don't know who did that.
Right.
And I know because I got a call from the representative saying, "Hey, Joe, guess what? The language of the bill is in the law, and that just got passed in August." And I didn't, he didn't know.
What, if any, was the pushback? Was there any?
So I didn't hear of any direct pushback, but then I always think there's probably indirect stuff. Anytime that you have a bill out there, they're looking for potential costs on the bill, and that cost can also be bureaucracy, if you will, paperwork, and the administration of it. And this is a pretty involved bill, and that's why, we have a next step now. We have the bill, since it's law, that's great, but we need to make sure that the administration does the next step in making sure that they find out, what is a good hiring goal? How do they want to set that up?
This is a beginning, but there's a lot more
We have a whole
advocacy.
new advocacy, so we need to work closely with the administration.
So is there, my viewers out here
Yep.
today, watching us now, what can they do? Can they do anything to help us in terms of this advocacy effort?
I think they should watch what's going on. I think they should pay attention to any kind of listservs that have Boston Center for Independent Living or East of Seals, because as we move along, our next step is to work with the administration. And I don't see why the administration wouldn't work with us. But if we do need to make some calls on that behalf, we would ask people to do that. But right now, it's basically, I think it's up to our group to push it. There'll be a time where we want to get the public's input on what they feel is important. Hopefully there'll be a couple forums that would be set up for this to get the input from individuals and also the providers. East of Seals, Boston Center for Independent Living, we're both providers that would have the same kind of requirements as anybody else. We're going to be, East of Seals has no requirement right now to hire people with disabilities. It does, and it recruits, but it has there's nothing in the law that says that we have to do that.
Right.
You guys are a little different.
I think an independent living center, and I'm pretty sure 70 or 80%
50, 51.
No, but I'm saying, yeah, an independent living center must have 51% of its staff. But I think in terms of the Boston Center for Independent Living, I'm pretty sure we have 80% or 75%.
Right. All different types of disabilities.
Exactly, ranging from, wheelchair users to.
And that's why it's so important for the Boston Center to be involved in this, because people can look for you for advice and ways of doing, innovative ways of doing things, because again, you have a lot of different people with different disabilities, and some of these, the overall, these companies are going to really benefit from it, because they're having a growing, aging workforce
right.
that is going to benefit from a lot of the accessibility devices, software, hardware, ergonomic type of things. I mean, how many times you hear about carpal tunnel? You know, you hear about
Yes.
that. How about nowadays? I see people doing more like exercises, and they want to be on their feet. So now we have the expanding desks.
Exactly.
The standing up desk.
Yeah, I had a
That-
consumer in my office the other day that she can't sit for a long time, so she needed a desk so
well-
she could work while she was standing up, and then she can sit down and she adjusts her desk accordingly.
A lot of I mean, in the past, that would be for somebody who was maybe a quadriplegic, who needed the desk to be at a higher level and things like that, to be able to reach the keyboard or things like that,
Right.
or somebody else that needed that type of accommodation. So I just think there's going to be a lot of good things that come from it, a lot of good
No, I agree.
education
I agree. This is a
for
fan.
you know,
Yeah.
state contractors, and I think the more the public's involved in it, in a proactive way, the more the community is going to benefit. We're going to get more people with disabilities working. The companies are going to have more dedicated employee and a greater employment pool of diversified employees, and yeah, I just think it's. I'm excited about it. I just know there's going to be a lot of work
Sure.
to get it
Sure.
into place.
Sure. Again, my name is Andy Foreman. I'm the host of Disability Connection, a show that helps you make a connection to the disability community, and hopefully we're helping you make a connection with the employment community. I mean, that's one of the goals here, or with this law. Would love to get your feedback, comments, questions. 617-708-3290, blocked call *82. Has there been any pushback when I was talking about pushback from the private sector, from employers?
From the bill?
On the bill, from the employers, like saying, "Oh my God, we can't meet a quota or a 7% goal. You know, it's unfair to put that kind of request on us or requirement on us."
I haven't heard of any direct.
I mean, it's kind of too soon for a lot of this stuff,
But here's the deal. Again, this is why the focus is on state contractors. So people, organizations, for-profit, nonprofit, who want to contract with the state, our tax dollars, where this is going to be that will be something that will be placed on the contract. So, in other words, so if Easy Seals wants to go after a certain contract, it's going to say, hey, look, we need you to sign off that you're going to try having at least 7% of your employees
Whatever
be people with
percent,
disabilities. And if you're not there right now, then you need to take steps to do that.
and show us a plan on how you're going to do it.
And so the plan would be, but it needs to be a legit plan. So you need to say, okay, look, we're going to make sure that our offices are fully accessible, or are accessible. We're going to make that. So we'll make sure that's done. We're going to make sure that we're working with the different vocational vendors out there, Mass Rehab, Mass Commission for the Blind,
Right.
And Department of Developmental Services, things like that. That we're going to have relationships. We're going to outreach for jobs and everything like that.
Affirmatively recruit.
Yeah.
I wanted to touch on before we leave here, very important, the example that this is setting for non-state contractors, for a ABC company that has nothing to do with the state or doesn't have a contract with the state. Do you think it sets an example for them?
I do, in that they're going to be watching their other community partners, other organizations who are like for-profit organizations that do have contracts. They're going to be having to do this. So then the other companies, the private companies around watching this, are saying, "Oh wow, okay. So you're doing the steps because of the state contract. Oh, maybe it makes sense. This is great."
So maybe it makes.
And a lot of times, people will tell you that they've made the place more accessible. They've worked more accommodating their employees. Their employees are gonna be grateful for that, and in return, you have more loyal employees and companies.
course.
I find a lot of companies reach out to organizations like ours, and to get more advice, because even if they don't have to, because it's good for their employees, and what's good for their employees is good for business.
Right, right.
And so, we've got to keep that kind of figure. So I think that it's going to help set the example. I also like to have the state do the
Yes,
same thing. I want
yes.
the state to set a hiring example for state employees. And that's something else that we're going to be advocating for too.
Right.
So we have the state employees, we have state contractors, and then after that we'll work on the general public.
It's not just the right thing to do, we all know it is, but, like you just said, taking care of your staff is good for business. And maybe there's someone with a disability out there who is collecting supplemental security income right now who has great computer skills and would be a great computer, I don't know, whatever, programmer.
Right.
Or something, or database administrator, or something like that. Joe, thank you very much for being a part of the connection. You really helped us, and for all the work you have done in making this law a reality. And people with disabilities should stay tuned and get involved, and get involved in different employment actions, and just stay interested in a lot of things. A lot of good things are happening, and thank you for being a part.
Thank you for having me again. It's great.
Take care.
All right.
Thank you, everybody, for watching, and see you next time.